Here we go on our newest assignment for computer animation, and this time what we are going to be focusing on is creating another mask to create a moving flag animation, and also adding in some kind of a motion guide and adding another animated thing flying through the sky here. And so I kind of use this UFO and made the ground kind of red looking, so it looks like it could be Mars or something along those lines. So what we're going to start with is we're going to go to a new document, and what we really want to start with is by drawing a rectangle for the flag. So we'll use our rectangle tool, and we'll start kind of in the upper left hand side here and draw a rectangle. Now this rectangle should not have any stroke outline, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. The color of your flag can be entirely up to your choosing. I'm going to stick with yellow. I think that should work out okay. What I want to do with this flag is this rectangular shape is I'm going to kind of change the shape of this rectangle. Now if you just have your move tool or your selection tool selected, what you can do is change shapes by kind of hovering over the edges. So what I'm going to do with this shape is I'm going to kind of pull it down on the bottom and then also pull this edge down on the top, so it's got a bit of a curve going down. Pull that a little bit further, maybe this one a little bit too far. Alright, so that looks good, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this shape and I'm going to copy and paste it, so Window C and Window V, and what I'm going to do is then take this shape and rotate it. We can do that a couple ways. I can use my transform tool, or I can go to modify transform and I can flip this shape vertically and it'll flip it automatically for me. So then what I want to do is I want to go ahead and move this shape so that it is lined up just right with my first one. So I have this kind of a wave going across here. Now I'm going to go ahead and repeat this step by taking both of these shapes, or our new shape, all together as one, and again Window C, Window V, copying and pasting it again so that I have one really long kind of ribbon now. Make sure this lines up just right, and that looks pretty good. Zoom in, make sure there's not really any seam. That looks good. Okay, so there we have kind of the basis of our kind of a flag animation. What we're going to do is apply a gradient to this. And so what we're going to do is go ahead over here to linear gradient. And I want that color back. So I will find it in here. We'll go ahead and make this kind of like a yellowish color. Got to turn up this slider right here and maybe bring this a little bit further over towards the orange side of things. That looks pretty close. Okay, so what we're going to want this to be is a gradient that has 5 different shades to it. So right now we have one here. We'll go ahead and move it over, or we'll take another one right here, another in the middle, and another at the end. And what we'd like to do is have the darker sections be here in the middle. Okay, so we're going to take this color and we're going to slide this down just a little bit. We're going to also take this color and slide this down a bit here. And then this last one, we actually want to make it to the same yellow color that I had on this first one. So if I move this over and then click right here, it's going to create a new spot right there. I'm going to take this one and just drag it away and then move this one down to the end. So that looks pretty good. I've got a lighter color in the middle and 2 darker colors here on the sides. And ideally what that does is it makes the shadows appear like there's shadows going across this ribbon shape, or my flag. So what I want to do next is I'm going to again take this and copy and paste it another time, so it's going to be even longer. So I'm going to select all, or window A, and I'm going to copy and paste this again, and then move it all the way down to the end here. Make sure that it lines up good. And maybe zoom in to make sure it's lined up right. It looks like it's just a little off, so I'm going to nudge it with my arrow keys. And it looks like that lines up good now. So ideally what we have is something that looks like this for our flag to kind of be scrolling across. And what we're going to do is create a mask right here so that this can kind of scroll right through. And then and make it look like it's an animated flag. What I want to do with this entire shape now is I'm going to take everything, this whole shape, and I'm going to convert it to a symbol. So I'm going to press F8, and I'm going to call this flag, and keep it as a graphic, and say OK. Should have this blue line come up around it. Now what I'm going to do is create a mask layer above the ribbon layer. So what I'd like to do is create a new layer here. I'll right click on this one and go down to mask and unlock this layer, and what I'm going to do is draw on this first keyframe of this layer 2. Here I'll actually name this ribbon. That's kind of what it is. Ribbon that creates our flag, and then this I will also title mask. Just always a good thing to name your layers and keep track of what is what. So we're going to take this rectangle tool again and draw a rectangle that kind of overlaps the front part, the first part of our ribbon. Now again, we don't want any outlines. I should have turned off outlines, and we do want this this mask color to be solid. So we will go to fill solid, and I'd really like it to be something that's different, much different from the color I have on my actual flag, my ribbon. So I'm going to make it a blue so that it does not stick out so much. Now I want to move it so that we see the edge of the ribbon kind of come out just a little bit. So it looks like this is lined up pretty good. Okay, so right now I have my mask on top of my ribbon. So mask and ribbon underneath. This is locked right now, so it didn't select it. But anytime you select or click on the first keyframe of a layer, it should automatically select everything on it. Just to review that for you. What I'd like to do next is I'm going to go down the timeline and create a new keyframe. We'll say maybe about, we'll say 25. I'll create a new keyframe by pressing F6. I'll also go down here and I'll press F5 so that my mask stays present long enough there. And what I'm going to do is on this keyframe here that I created on my ribbon layer, I'm going to go ahead and take my ribbon and move it all the way across this mask until it is just barely kind of poking out the other side. So you can see that little bit right here. And what we'll do is go ahead and we will create a motion tween, so this will move across that mask. So if we do lock these again, you'll see that, and you'll see what happens, and there is the start of our flag animation. Okay, so so that is the way that that's generally going to work. What I'd like to do actually is go ahead and create a whole nother one of these ribbons so that we really have a looping animation. Although this one works pretty good. So we could maybe just leave it as this. But what I do want to do actually is to animate my mask as well so that I can create more of a sway that's going on for this flag animation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go every 5 keyframes. So I'll go 5, and in case you were wondering if you want to read what frame you're on, clicked on, it tells you right here on a bar here. So I know I'm on keyframe 5. I'm going to create a keyframe there. I'm going to go to 10. It tells me 10. I'm going to click here, 15 and 20 and then 25. So I'm going to have a keyframe on each one of those. Now what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to actually kind of bend this mask rectangular shape the same way we bent the shape of the actual ribbon. I'm going to start by kind of pulling this shape a little bit this way, and then going to this next keyframe that I made before and bend the flag the opposite way. Okay, go to the 10th, and I'm going to go back, oops, click off the side so that my whole thing doesn't move with me. And I'm going to bend these out, go to 15, I'm going to take this and move it back in, and then I'm going to go to 20, bend these sides back out, and lastly 25, and I will bend this back in. Okay, and then what we need to do in between all these is add in shape tweens, so that this shape actually kind of morphs from that to that. So I'm going to go ahead and do shape tweens for all of these different keyframes on my mask. So I should have one layer that has all these green arrows going across, and then one motion tween here. So I'm going to go ahead and save. It's always a good idea to save your project every once in a while. I'm going to make sure that I save this as flag 2, or let's see, flag demo is what I'll save this as. Okay, so when I go ahead and play this animation, what you'll see is now we have kind of the flag sort of moving and jumping a little more back and forth. Creates a little more realistic type effect for our flag animation. What we need to do now is we need to go ahead and add a flagpole. So I'm going to lock this layer so that all I see is the flag, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer up here. We'll call this flagpole. And on this first keyframe, I'll go ahead and just use my rectangle tool. It's a pretty easy one to use. Make a super thin rectangle that goes down off my page. I do want to delete the stroke again. I keep forgetting to not do stroke with these pieces. And I'm going to kind of line it up good right here. I don't really like this blue. I think I can go with something maybe more like a bluish gray kind of color. Let's see. I think that works pretty good. Or you know what? Yeah, go with more of like a brownish, or yeah, maybe a dark gray color like that. Will work pretty well. And then go ahead and add kind of like a flag top to your flag. I'm gonna use my oval tool, make a small little circle holding shift. I'm gonna zoom in on this. Now again, I'm gonna want to get rid of my stroke outline, and I'll take this and let's see. I'll go with maybe like an orange color on top of this flagpole. And kind of take this and move it down so that it's right about at the top of this flag. Actually, what I think will be a better way to do this is to make this a radial gradient. And so I added this gradient here that I had created earlier. I'm going to go ahead and take out all these extra colors. I'm going to make one of these a little more towards the orange, and then make this one a little lighter, so like a orange to white sorta. And so what that does is it creates kind of a little illusion of a sphere ball at the top of my flag. So what I should have when I play this is a waving flag sort of animation here. So the next steps really are to add to your flag animation some kind of a ground, some kind of a background scene, and then some kind of image floating in and flying along a motion guide. So, I can demonstrate that again really quickly for you so that you can see how I went ahead and did this. Sometimes you do have issues if we're trying to make a background now. I dragged that layer down below and it went into my mask layer, but if I want to make this layer below but not on its own layer, see how I get this little dotted line and I drag this over to the left side, and now this layer is not actually a part of the mask. So this is going to be my sky layer. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take a rectangle tool, and I'm going to actually not turn on the stroke this time, and I'm going to fill this background with a kind of a sky gradient. So I'm going to take this and make it a linear gradient, and instead of these being the colors, let's see here, I want this to be a linear gradient. I'm not sure why it's not changing my gradient that I have here into the one that I'm making. So I'm not sure what this little dot is in the middle. So this is being a little finicky right now. But what I'd like to do is change this to a linear gradient. There we go, it changed it now. But there's something funny here. This yellow needs to go. I would like these colors to be kind of like colors that I would find in the sky. So I'm going to choose kind of like a purplish type color for one, and maybe have this other one be kind of more of like a bluish green, dark blue type of color. I think this works pretty well for kind of a sky. But what I do want to do is for this gradient to go up and down. So what I'll use is my gradient transform tool and take this gradient and actually flip it so that it is going up and down. And you can see that those lines are going straight across now, so that tells me that those are moving up and down. I'll also create another layer. I'll put this as the ground layer. On this first keyframe, I will go ahead and take my brush tool, choose a color, for example, maybe take one of these darker browns. I think I actually like this really dark brown. For this one, I'm going to make my brush size a little bigger and go ahead and kind of draw some land for this to be attached to and fill it in. And if I go ahead and save and watch this again really quick, you can see I've got kind of my ground, my flag going in the front. And last step is to choose something and add in a motion guide that goes around your scene and something else that attaches to it. Same process as we did in our last assignment with the globe mask, and having a motion guide kind of brings something across the scene here too. So be creative with what you choose to add to your flag animation. This could be in space, this could be on Earth, this could be any kind of a flag. This could be a celebratory flag, it could be a flag that represents something and country somewhere. Whatever you feel like you would like to do. It's a little difficult to do much as far as designs go on the flag because we're keeping it more like one color of a gradient right now, but you can definitely try to experiment with adding some different other things to your scene. All right then, so as always, be creative and have fun.